The dog's scream split the morning silence like a gunshot. Then came the woman's cry, sharp, desperate, cut short by the sound of flesh striking flesh. Marcus Cole froze on his mother's back porch, coffee cup halfway to his mouth. Through the hedge he saw it. A silver-haired man in the $1,000 suit kicking a small golden dog. A young woman rushed forward to protect the animal. The man's hand connected with her face. She crumpled to the ground. "Pick up that filthy animal and get inside," the man's voice carried clearly, "before I put it down permanently." Ranger's growl vibrated against Marcus's leg. 12 years of combat instincts screamed one word: act. Before we continue, tell us where you're watching from in the comments below. Subscribe and stay until the end, because what this Navy SEAL discovered behind those iron gates will shake you to your core. This is a story of cruelty, courage, and the moment one man decided he could no longer look away. Marcus Cole had seen violence before. He had witnessed it in desert villages and mountain outposts, in places where the rules of civilization dissolved like smoke. But standing on his dead mother's property in Willowbrook, Virginia, watching a wealthy man beat a defenseless woman through a gap in the hedges, this was different. This was home. His hand trembled, not from fear, from the effort of containing everything inside him that wanted to vault that fence and end this with his bare hands. Ranger pressed closer, the German shepherd's body rigid with tension. His tan and black coat bristled along his spine. A low, continuous growl rumbled in his chest. "Easy," Marcus whispered, but he didn't mean it. Nothing about this was easy. The woman, young, small, dark hair pulled into a tight braid, scrambled to her feet. Blood trickled from her split lip. She gathered the whimpering dog into her arms, cradling it against her chest like a child. "I'm sorry, Mr. Whitmore," she said. Her voice shook. She didn't mean to bark. She was scared of the delivery truck. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." The silver-haired man adjusted his cufflinks. Casual, unhurried, as if he hadn't just struck a woman half his size. "Your apologies mean nothing, Elena." His voice was ice wrapped in silk. "That animal has one more chance. One. Do you understand what happens after that?" "Yes, sir." "Look at me when I'm speaking to you." She raised her eyes. Marcus saw it then, the practiced emptiness, the careful blankness designed to survive. He had seen that look before, on the faces of prisoners, on the faces of people who had learned that showing emotion invited punishment. "If that dog makes another sound when we have guests," Whitmore continued, "I will handle the problem myself. Permanently. And Elena?" "Yes, sir?" "Clean yourself up. You look pathetic." He turned and walked back toward the mansion. The woman stood motionless until he disappeared inside. Then her shoulders collapsed. She buried her face in the dog's fur and wept silently, her body shaking with sobs she couldn't afford to release. Marcus's jaw clenched so hard his teeth ached. Ranger whined softly, looking up at his handler with intelligent amber eyes. The question was clear. "Why aren't we moving?" "I know, boy," Marcus breathed. "I know." 3 days earlier, Marcus Cole had arrived in Willowbrook with nothing but a duffel bag, a dog, and a hollowed-out feeling where his purpose used to live. His mother had died 2 months ago. Cancer. Fast and merciless. He'd been on deployment when she passed, received the news via satellite phone in a room that smelled like diesel and gunpowder. By the time he made it stateside, she was already in the ground. The house she left him was modest. White-clapboard, wraparound porch, half-acre of overgrown garden backing up against the most expensive estate in the county. She had lived here alone for 15 years after his father's heart attack. She had died here alone, while her son was 8,000 miles away, doing what he thought mattered. Now Marcus walked through rooms that smelled like her perfume and wondered what any of it had been for. 12 years, he said to Ranger. The dog sat at his feet, ears perked. 12 years, and I wasn't here when she needed me. Ranger pressed his nose against Marcus's palm. Yeah, I know. Doesn't help. He was 35 years old, short, dark brown hair, military neat, wearing his Navy working uniform out of habit more than necessity. The Type 3 digital camouflage in green and brown that had been his second skin for over a decade. His terminal leave had started 3 weeks ago. In 60 days, he had to decide, re-enlist or walk away. Right now, walking away felt like the only option that made sense. His last deployment had ended badly. An extraction gone wrong. Intel that was outdated by the time they hit the ground. 2 teammates injured, 1 critically. Decisions that replayed endlessly every time he closed his eyes. You made the right call, his commanding officer had told him. Then why does it feel like I got them killed? He hadn't asked. The Navy had offered him a commendation. He had asked for leave instead. Now he was here, in his dead mother's house, trying to figure out who Marcus Cole was when he wasn't carrying a weapon. Then he heard the dog scream. After Whitmore went inside, Marcus forced himself to turn away from the hedge. His heart hammered against his ribs. Ranger paced in tight circles, unable to settle. We can't just charge in there, Marcus said, as much to himself as to the dog. We don't know what we're dealing with. We don't know. He stopped. We don't know. But he could find out. Marcus went inside and opened his laptop. His fingers moved across the keyboard with practiced efficiency. Victor Whitmore, Willowbrook, Virginia. Real estate developer. Philanthropist. Major donor to the sheriff's re-election campaign, the county hospital, the local children's charity. Photographs showed a handsome older man shaking hands with politicians, cutting ribbons at community events, smiling beside his elegant wife at galas. The model of civic virtue. Marcus scrolled deeper. Business dealings, property acquisitions. A pattern emerged. Whitmore specialized in buying distressed properties, often from immigrant families facing foreclosure. He hired foreign workers for his various enterprises, sponsored their visas, provided housing. Generous employer, one article called him. Marcus thought about the woman's split lip, the terror in her eyes, the way she apologized for her dog being afraid. Generous, he muttered. Right. He searched for employees, household staff, found nothing official. No public records of who worked inside that mansion. But he did find something else. A 5-year-old article in a local paper. A brief mention of a domestic disturbance at the Whitmore estate. Police were called. No charges filed. The matter was described as a misunderstanding involving a former employee who had personal issues. The employee's name wasn't mentioned. Marcus leaned back. Ranger rested his chin on Marcus's knee, watching him with those knowing eyes. What do you think, boy? Coincidence? Ranger huffed. Yeah, me neither. The next morning, Marcus positioned himself on the back porch with a clear sightline to the Whitmore property. He told himself he was just having coffee, just getting fresh air. The lie tasted bitter. At 5:47 a.m., movement. The young woman, Elena, emerged from a side door, carrying cleaning supplies. She moved quickly, efficiently, starting with the patio furniture. By 6:15, she had swept the entire back terrace. At 6:30, an older woman appeared. Blonde, expensively dressed, even at this hour. She said something to Elena that Marcus couldn't hear. Elena nodded rapidly, her posture shrinking. The blonde woman gestured sharply toward the main house. Elena hurried inside, leaving her supplies where they lay. At 7 o'clock, Elena reappeared, carrying a breakfast tray. She served the blonde woman on the terrace, standing at attention while the woman ate. When a piece of toast was waved dismissively, Elena took the tray and retreated. Marcus watched for 3 hours. In that time, Elena never stopped moving, never sat down, never ate. The small golden dog, Luna, he'd heard her called, was kept in the yard near a garden shed. No food bowl was visible. The dog lay in a patch of shade, tail occasionally thumping hopefully when Elena passed nearby. But Elena never stopped to pet her, never even looked at her. She's not allowed to, Marcus realized. She's not allowed to show affection to her own dog. At noon, Victor Whitmore emerged from the house. He walked to where Elena was scrubbing the patio stones on her hands and knees. "Stand up." She scrambled to her feet. "The Hendersons are coming for dinner Saturday. I expect this house to be perfect." "Yes, Mr. Whitmore." "And the dog stays in the shed during the event. I don't want Mrs. Henderson's allergies to be aggravated." Elena's face flickered. "Sir, the shed doesn't have ventilation. If she's locked in there for hours—" "Are you questioning me?" Silence. Then, barely audible, "No, sir." "Good, because I've been very patient, Elena, very generous. Most employers wouldn't tolerate a pet at all. Most employers wouldn't put up with the noise, the mess, the liability." He stepped closer to her. "Most employers would have sent you back to Manila years ago, and we both know what happens to your family if that happens. Don't we?" "Yes, sir." "So the dog stays in the shed, and you will make sure this house is perfect. And you will smile at our guests, like you are the happiest, most grateful girl in Virginia." His voice dropped. "Because you are grateful. Aren't you, Elena?" "Yes, sir. I'm very grateful." "I can't hear you." "I'm very grateful, Mr. Whitmore." He patted her cheek, the same cheek he had struck the day before. "Good girl." He walked away. Elena stood motionless for a long moment. Then she sank back to her knees and resumed scrubbing, her movements mechanical, her face empty. Marcus's hands had curled into fists without him noticing. This isn't just abuse, he thought. This is captivity. That night, Marcus couldn't sleep. He lay in his mother's guest room, staring at the ceiling, while Ranger dozed at the foot of the bed. Moonlight filtered through the curtains. The house creaked with the settling sounds of old wood. His mind kept returning to Elena's face. The practiced blankness, the way she flinched before Whitmore even raised his voice, the way she apologized for things that weren't her fault. He had seen it before, in Afghanistan, in Iraq. People conditioned by fear to anticipate violence before it arrived. People who had learned that survival meant becoming invisible. She's a prisoner, he thought. In broad daylight, in suburban Virginia, she's a prisoner. But what could he do about it? He was a soldier, an operator. He knew how to neutralize threats, extract hostages, survive in hostile territory. But this wasn't a war zone. This was America. There were laws here, procedures, systems designed to handle exactly this kind of situation. "And those systems are failing her," a voice in his head whispered. "Whitmore donates to the sheriff. Whitmore has connections. Whitmore has power. Who's going to believe an immigrant maid over him?" Marcus turned onto his side. Ranger lifted his head, sensing his handler's restlessness. "I can't just ignore this," Marcus said quietly. "You understand that, right? I can't pretend I didn't see." Ranger's tail thumped once against the mattress. "But I can't just bust in there either. I need evidence. I need to understand what I'm dealing with. I need—" He stopped. He needed to talk to her. The opportunity came 2 days later. Marcus noticed that every afternoon, around 3 p.m., Elena collected fallen branches from the wooded area at the back of the property. It was the only time she came close to the boundary between the estates. He positioned himself near the fence line, pretending to inspect damage from a recent storm. Ranger sat beside him, alert but calm. Elena appeared on schedule, basket in hand. She worked quickly, eyes down, moving with the efficiency of someone who had learned to make every moment count. Marcus waited until she was close. "Excuse me," he called softly. She froze. Her head snapped up, eyes wide with terror. The basket slipped from her hands, branches scattering. "I'm sorry," Marcus said quickly, keeping his voice gentle. "I didn't mean to startle you. I just moved in next door. My mother's house." Elena stared at him. Her gaze darted to Ranger, then back to Marcus. She took a step backward. "I can't talk to you," she whispered. "I'm not allowed." "Not allowed by who?" "Please," her voice cracked. "You didn't see me. You don't know anything. Please." She was shaking, physically trembling. And Marcus realized, with a sickening certainty, that she wasn't afraid of him. She was afraid of being seen talking to him. Afraid of what would happen if Whitmore found out. "Hey," he said softly. "I'm not going to hurt you. I'm not going to tell anyone we spoke. I just wanted to make sure you're okay." "I'm fine." The lie was automatic, hollow. "You're not fine. I saw what happened the other morning. I saw him hit you." The color drained from Elena's face. "You saw?" "I saw everything, and I want to help." For a moment, something flickered in her eyes. Hope, maybe, or the memory of hope. Then it vanished, replaced by that practiced emptiness. "You can't help me," she said. "No one can. Please, just forget what you saw. Forget I exist." She gathered the fallen branches with shaking hands and hurried away, not looking back. Marcus watched her disappear around the corner of the mansion. His chest felt tight. Ranger pressed against his leg, whining softly. "I know, boy," Marcus murmured, "but she's not wrong. I can't help her if she won't let me." That night he made a decision. If Elena couldn't come to him, he would find another way. The next morning, Marcus drove into town. He asked questions at the diner, the hardware store, the small library on Main Street. People were friendly, happy to chat with the son of Margaret Cole, rest her soul. He asked about the Whitmore estate, about Victor Whitmore, about the people who worked there. The responses were consistent. Victor Whitmore was a pillar of the community, generous, successful, devoted to his wife. A little formal, maybe, a little intense, but a good man. No one mentioned household staff. No one mentioned a young Filipino woman with bruises on her arms. At the library, Marcus found old editions of the local newspaper. He searched for any mention of the Whitmore estate, any hint of trouble. There were 2 incidents. The first was the domestic disturbance he had already found. 5 years ago, quickly dismissed. The second was older. 8 years ago. A brief notice that a worker at one of Whitmore's properties had been returned to her home country after failing to fulfill her employment obligations. No name, no details. Returned to her home country, Marcus thought. Or disposed of. He needed more information. He needed someone who understood how people like Whitmore operated. He thought about his contacts in military intelligence. Thought about the networks he could tap, the favors he could call in. Then he thought about something simpler. On Main Street, between the barber shop and the antique store, there was a small church, St. Michael's Catholic. And beside the church, a modest brick building with a sign that read, Immigrant Support Services, Father Thomas Brennan, Director. Marcus parked across the street and watched for a moment. Through the window, he could see a man in clerical clothing, talking to a young Hispanic couple. The man was in his 60s, gray-haired, with a kind of weathered face that suggested he had heard every story and judged none. Marcus made his decision. He walked across the street and pushed open the door. Father Thomas Brennan looked up as Marcus entered. His eyes were sharp, assessing, but his smile was warm. "Welcome," he said. "Can I help you?" "I hope so, Father." Marcus glanced at the couple who were gathering their things. "I can wait if you're busy." "Not at all. Maria, Enrique, we'll continue this tomorrow, yes?" The couple nodded and departed with murmured thanks. Father Thomas turned his full attention to Marcus. "Please, sit. You look like a man carrying a heavy weight." Marcus sat in a worn wooden chair. Ranger settled at his feet. "Beautiful dog," Father Thomas observed. "Military?" "Yes, sir. Both of us." "I thought so. You have the bearing." The priest folded his hands. "Now, what brings you to me?" Marcus hesitated. He had learned over years of operations to compartmentalize information, to reveal only what was necessary. But something about this man, the steadiness in his eyes, the patience in his posture, made him want to tell the truth. "I moved into my mother's house 3 days ago," Marcus began. "The property backs up against the Whitmore estate." Father Thomas's expression didn't change, but something shifted behind his eyes. A tension, a wariness. "Go on." "I've seen things, Father. A young woman who works there. Filipino, I think. She's being abused. Badly. And I don't think she can leave." Silence stretched between them. Then Father Thomas exhaled slowly, like a man releasing a breath he had held for years. "Her name is Elena Reyes," he said quietly. "And you're right. She can't leave." Marcus leaned forward. "You know her?" "She came to me 6 months ago, terrified. Showed me bruises covering her arms, her back, told me things that—" He stopped, composing himself. "She begged for help. I contacted the authorities, filed reports, made calls. And? Nothing happened." Father Thomas's voice carried an edge of old anger. "Victor Whitmore is untouchable in this county. He funds the sheriff's campaign. He sits on the board of the hospital. He's photographed with the governor twice a year." The priest shook his head. "A domestic worker with an expired visa against a man like that?" No one listened. "Her visa is expired? That's how he controls her. He sponsored her work visa 5 years ago. When it lapsed, he didn't renew it. Now she's undocumented, which means if she goes to the police, she risks deportation. And if she's deported, he's told her what will happen to her family." Father Thomas nodded grimly. "He keeps her passport locked away, keeps her phone, keeps her isolated. She has no money, no papers, no one to turn to. She's a prisoner in everything but name." Marcus's jaw tightened. "There has to be something, some law, some agency." "There are laws against human trafficking," Father Thomas said. "But proving it requires evidence, testimony, cooperation from victims who are too frightened to speak. Elena won't testify. She's convinced that Whitmore will destroy her and everyone she loves." "Then we gather evidence without her." The priest studied him for a long moment. "You're serious?" "Father, I spent 12 years fighting enemies overseas. I watched people suffer because no one with power gave a damn about them. I'm done watching." Marcus met the priest's gaze steadily. "I'm going to help Elena Reyes. I'm asking if you're willing to help me." Father Thomas was quiet. Then, slowly, he reached into his desk drawer and withdrew a thin folder. "I've been collecting information on Victor Whitmore for 3 years," he said, "hoping someday someone would come who could use it." He slid the folder across the desk. "God works in mysterious ways, my son. Perhaps he sent you." Marcus opened the folder. Inside were handwritten notes, photocopies of newspaper clippings, names and dates and fragments of testimony, and one photograph, grainy, taken from a distance, of Elena Reyes, kneeling on the Whitmore patio, head bowed, while Victor Whitmore stood over her with his hand raised. "I took that from my car," Father Thomas said quietly. "6 months ago. The morning after she came to me for help." Marcus stared at the image, the evidence of cruelty, frozen in time. "This is a start," he said, "but I need more." "What are you planning?" Marcus closed the folder. "I'm going to watch. I'm going to document. And when I have enough," he looked at the priest, "I'm going to make sure Victor Whitmore never hurts anyone again." Father Thomas nodded slowly. "Then may God guide your hand." Marcus stood. Ranger rose with him. At the door, Marcus paused. "Father, how many others has he done this to?" The priest's face aged 10 years in the span of a breath. "Elena is the 4th that I know of," he said quietly. "The previous 3 disappeared." The word hung in the air like smoke. Marcus walked out into the sunlight, but the warmth couldn't touch the cold spreading through his chest. 4 women, he thought. 3 gone, 1 still trapped. Ranger pressed against his leg, sensing his handler's resolve crystallizing into something hard and sharp. "We're going to end this," Marcus said quietly. "Whatever it takes." Ranger's ears perked forward, his amber eyes locked onto Marcus's face. "Whatever it takes." That night, Marcus sat on his mother's back porch, watching the lights of the Whitmore mansion through the trees. A single window on the ground floor remained lit. The kitchen, he guessed, where Elena was probably still cleaning, still serving, still surviving, one moment at a time. He thought about the 3 women who had come before her, the ones who had disappeared. Where are they now, he wondered? Deported? Transferred to another monster? Or worse? His phone buzzed, a text from an old teammate checking in. "Hey, brother, how's civilian life treating you?" Marcus stared at the message for a long moment. Then he typed his reply. "Ask me again in a month." He set the phone down and returned his gaze to the window. Somewhere in that house, Elena Reyes was fighting to survive another day. She didn't know that someone was watching. She didn't know that help was coming. But Marcus Cole knew, and he wasn't going to look away. Ranger settled at his feet, a warm presence in the darkness. The dog's eyes remained fixed on the distant mansion, as if he too understood that the real mission had just begun. The night deepened around them, and inside the Whitmore estate, Elena Reyes finished scrubbing the kitchen floor, checked that Luna was safe in the yard, and climbed the narrow stairs to her tiny room behind the servants' quarters. She didn't pray anymore. She had stopped believing anyone was listening. But tonight, for the first time in months, something stirred in her chest that she barely recognized. Hope. Faint and fragile and almost certainly foolish. But there. She fell asleep without knowing that the man next door was already planning her liberation, and that everything was about to change. The folder Father Thomas had given him contained names. Maria Santos, departed 2019. Lita Fernandez, departed 2021. Rosa Aquino, departed 2022. 3 women, 3 work visas sponsored by Victor Whitmore, 3 disappearances marked as voluntary departures in official records. Marcus spent the next 72 hours digging. He called in favors from intelligence contacts, ran background checks through channels he wasn't supposed to have access to anymore, cross-referenced employment records with immigration databases. What he found made his blood run cold. None of the 3 women had returned to the Philippines. Their passports had never been scanned at any international airport. Their families hadn't heard from them in years. Maria Santos's mother had filed a missing persons report with Philippine authorities. It went nowhere. Lita Fernandez's sister had contacted the U.S. Embassy. She was told her sister had left voluntarily, and there was nothing they could do. Rosa Aquino simply vanished. No family came forward. No one asked questions. 3 women erased from existence. And Elena Reyes was next. Marcus sat at his mother's kitchen table, staring at the information spread before him. Ranger lay at his feet, watching him with those knowing amber eyes. "He's not just abusing her," Marcus said aloud. "He's running a trafficking operation. Right here, right under everyone's noses." His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. He picked it up, frowning. "Please, I need help. This is Elena." Marcus's heart stopped, then hammered back to life. He typed quickly. "How did you get this number?" The response came seconds later. "Father Thomas, he said you could help. I don't know if I believe him, but I don't have anyone else." Marcus stared at the screen. His fingers trembled slightly as he typed. "I can help, but I need you to trust me." A long pause, then, "I can't leave. He has my passport. He has everything. If I run, he'll find me. He always finds them." "Finds who?" "The others. The women before me. Maria tried to run. He found her. I don't know what happened, but she never came back." Marcus's jaw clenched. "Elena, I need you to tell me everything. Can you meet me at the fence line tomorrow? Same time you collect branches? If he catches me talking to you, he'll kill Luna. He'll hurt my family. He won't catch you. I promise." Another pause. Longer this time. Then, "Okay, tomorrow, 3 p.m. Please don't make me regret this." Marcus set the phone down. His hands were steady now. The mission had just become real. "She's reaching out," he told Ranger. "That means she's desperate enough to take a risk." Ranger's tail thumped once. "We're not going to let her down." The next afternoon, Marcus waited at the fence line. He had positioned himself carefully, angled so that anyone watching from the main house would see only his back. Ranger sat beside him, alert but calm. At 3:07, Elena appeared. She moved quickly through the trees, her eyes darting constantly toward the mansion. Her hands shook as she gathered branches, working her way closer to where Marcus stood. "Don't look at me," she whispered when she was close enough. "Keep your eyes forward. He has cameras everywhere." "I know. I've been watching." "Then you know what he does, what he's capable of." "I know enough. Tell me the rest." Elena's voice was barely audible. "I came here 5 years ago. He sponsored my visa, said he needed household help, said he would pay well and I could send money home to my family." "And?" "The first year was fine. Hard work, but fair. Then my visa expired, and he told me he hadn't filed the renewal paperwork. He said it was my fault. Said I owed him for the legal fees, the housing, the food. He said the debt would take years to pay off." "How much debt?" "He says $50,000. But it doesn't matter how much I work. The number never goes down. He adds charges for things I didn't know I was paying for. Electricity, water, medical care when he—" Her voice broke. "When he hurts me." Marcus forced himself to remain still, though every muscle in his body screamed for action. "Elena, what happened to the other women? Maria, Lita, Rosa. She went pale. How do you know those names? Father Thomas. He's been keeping records. Maria tried to escape, Elena whispered. 3 years ago. She made it to the bus station. He found her within an hour. The sheriff brought her back personally, said she was a flight risk, said she was lucky Mr. Whitmore wasn't pressing charges. And then? I never saw her again. He told me she was deported, but I found her rosary in the garden shed a week later. She never would have left that behind. Never. Marcus's stomach turned. You think he killed her? I don't know. I don't want to know. All I know is that everyone who tries to leave disappears. And I can't. Her voice cracked. I have a little sister in Manila. She's 17. Whitmore has her address, her photo. He shows it to me when he wants me to remember what I have to lose. He threatened your family? He doesn't threaten. He reminds me. Calmly. Politely. He tells me that accidents happen. That the Philippines is a dangerous place. That it would be such a tragedy if something happened to my sister while I was making foolish decisions. Marcus closed his eyes briefly. The level of calculated cruelty was staggering. I'm going to get you out, he said quietly. I'm going to get your documents back, get you somewhere safe, and make sure Victor Whitmore never hurts anyone again. You can't. He's too powerful. He owns the sheriff. He owns the whole town. He doesn't own me. Elena finally looked at him. Her eyes were wet, her face hollow with exhaustion and fear. But somewhere beneath the hopelessness, something flickered. Why? She asked. Why do you care? You don't know me. Marcus thought about the question. Thought about 12 years of combat. Thought about the villages where he had seen the same hollow eyes. Thought about his mother dying alone while he was half a world away. Because I've spent my whole life fighting enemies I couldn't see, he said. And now there's one right next door. And I can't look away. Elena stared at him for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. There's a fundraiser Saturday night. Big donors, politicians. His wife wants everything perfect. He'll be distracted. What are you saying? I'm saying that's when his guard will be down. That's when you might have a chance to find proof. What kind of proof? He keeps a ledger in his office safe. Names, dates, payments, everything. Maria told me about it before she disappeared. She said it was enough to put him away for life. Marcus's pulse quickened. Can you get me inside? No, the house is locked down during events. But there's a service entrance by the kitchen. It's alarmed, but the code hasn't changed in 3 years. 7419. Why are you telling me this? Elena bent to pick up another branch, maintaining the pretense of work. Because I'm tired, she whispered. Tired of being afraid. Tired of watching Luna suffer for my mistakes. Tired of waiting to become another woman who disappeared. She straightened, not looking at him. If you're really going to do this, Saturday is your only chance. After the fundraiser, he's taking me to his property in the mountains. He says it's for cleaning, but I know what that means. What does it mean? It means I've become too much trouble. It means I'm about to disappear, like the others. The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. Saturday, he repeated. I'll be ready. Elena walked away without another word. But as she reached the edge of the trees, she paused. The dog, she said quietly, not turning around. Luna, whatever happens to me, please don't let him hurt her. Then she was gone. Marcus stood motionless for a long time after she left. Ranger pressed against his leg, a solid warmth in the cooling afternoon. 3 days, Marcus murmured. We have 3 days to build a case that will take down one of the most connected men in the county. He walked back to the house, his mind already working through scenarios. Breaking and entering, evidence collection, extraction protocols. It was the kind of operation he had run dozens of times overseas. But this wasn't overseas. This was Virginia. And the consequences of failure weren't just mission failure. They were Elena's life. Inside, he opened his laptop and began making calls. The first was to an old Navy buddy who now worked for the FBI. "Jake, it's Marcus Cole." "Marcus, brother, how long has it been? I heard about your mom. I'm sorry." "Thanks. Listen, I need a favor." "Name it." "What do you know about human trafficking operations on the East Coast? Specifically, using work visas to trap domestic workers?" Silence on the other end. "Then, that's a hell of a question to ask out of the blue." "I've got a situation. Local. Wealthy guy using immigrant women as slave labor. Multiple victims. At least one possible murder." "Jesus, you got proof?" "I'm working on it, but I need to know who to contact. Someone outside the local system. Someone who can't be bought." "Hold on," Marcus heard typing. "There's a task force out of the D.C. field office. Human Trafficking Initiative. Agent in charge is Diane Foster. She's sharp, clean, been going after these domestic servitude cases for years." "Can you get me her number?" "I can do better. I can get you a meeting." "But Marcus," Jake's voice turned serious, "if you're going to blow the whistle on a guy with political connections, you better have airtight evidence. These cases live or die on documentation. Without proof, it's just your word against his." "Then I'll get proof. Just be careful. These guys don't play nice when they're cornered." "Neither do I." He ended the call and dialed Father Thomas. "Marcus, any news?" "I talked to Elena. She's willing to cooperate." "Thank God. What do you need from me?" "Documentation. Everything you have on the other women. Dates, testimonies, any physical evidence." "I have what I have. It's not much." "It's a start. Can you meet me tomorrow?" "Of course. And Marcus, there's something else you should know." "What?" "Caroline Whitmore came to confession last month. She didn't say anything directly, but she asked for forgiveness for allowing harm to come to the innocent. She was crying. I've never seen her show emotion before." "You think she knows what her husband is doing?" "I think she's been complicit for years, and I think she's starting to crack." Marcus filed that information away. A fractured wife could be a liability for Whitmore, or an asset for the prosecution. "Thank you, Father." "Be careful, son. Victor Whitmore is not a man who loses gracefully." "Neither am I." The next 2 days blurred together. Marcus prepared for the Saturday operation with the same methodical precision he had applied to every mission in his career. He obtained the layout of the Whitmore mansion from public records, studied the security camera positions from his observation post, mapped entry and exit routes, prepared contingencies for a dozen different scenarios. He met with Father Thomas and copied every document in his files. He spoke with Agent Foster by phone and explained the situation. She was cautious but interested. "I can't authorize a raid based on hearsay," she said. "But if you can get me documentation of forced labor, debt bondage, or trafficking, I can move fast. Real fast." "What about the victim, Elena Reyes?" "If she's willing to testify, we can get her into protective custody. T visa status. Full immunity from deportation proceedings." "And if she's too scared to testify?" "Then we build the case without her. But it's harder. Much harder." "I'll get you what you need." "Cole, one more thing. Don't do anything stupid. I know you military types think you can handle everything yourself. But this is my world now. Let me do my job. I will, after Saturday. What happened Saturday? I get you proof. On Saturday evening, Marcus watched from his mother's property as cars began arriving at the Whitmore estate. Luxury sedans, black SUVs, license plates that screamed wealth and influence. He counted guests as they entered. 15, 20, 25. The house blazed with light, and the sound of music and laughter drifted across the property line. At 9 o'clock, he moved. He wore dark clothing and soft-soled shoes. Ranger stayed behind. This was a one-man operation, and silence was essential. He crossed to the service entrance Elena had described. The keypad glowed faintly in the darkness. He punched in the code, 7419. The lock clicked open. Marcus slipped inside. The kitchen was empty, the staff presumably circulating among the guests. He moved quickly through the service corridor, orienting himself based on the floor plans he had memorized. Whitmore's office was on the second floor, east wing. Marcus climbed the back stairs, his footsteps silent on the carpeted treads. The hallway was dim. Sounds of the party filtered up from below, muffled by distance and expensive insulation. He found the office. The door was locked with an electronic deadbolt. Marcus pulled out a device the size of a credit card, a gift from a friend in military intelligence. He held it against the lock and waited. 4 seconds. 5. 6. The lock clicked. He was in. The office was exactly what he expected. Dark wood, leather chairs, walls lined with photos of Whitmore shaking hands with governors and senators. A massive desk dominated the center of the room. Behind the desk, a painting. Marcus lifted it aside. The safe. It was a Holbrook 3000, high-end residential model. Fireproof, tamper-proof, supposedly uncrackable. Marcus smiled grimly. He had cracked 3 of these in Syria. He worked quickly, fingers moving with practiced precision. The combination lock resisted. He adjusted his technique, listened for the subtle clicks that betrayed the mechanism. 7 minutes later, the safe swung open. Inside, he found exactly what Elena had described. A leather-bound ledger filled with handwritten entries. Names, dates, amounts. Maria Santos, $42,000 outstanding. Lita Fernandez, $38,500 outstanding. Rosa Aquino, $45,000 outstanding. Elena Reyes, $52,000 outstanding. Each entry meticulously documented the fictional debt that bound each woman to servitude. But that wasn't all. There were photographs, passports, work visas, a folder labeled disposals, containing dates and locations that made Marcus's blood freeze. And at the bottom of the safe, a small USB drive. Marcus photographed everything with a camera designed for low-light conditions. He was careful not to disturb the arrangement, leaving no evidence of his intrusion. Then he heard footsteps in the hallway. He froze. The footsteps grew closer, stopped outside the office door. The handle turned. Marcus had 3 seconds to decide: fight or hide. He chose neither. He stepped behind the door as it swung open. A figure entered, reaching for the light switch. Caroline Whitmore. She flicked on the light and screamed. Marcus moved fast, covering her mouth with his hand, pulling her away from the door. "Don't scream," he whispered urgently. "I'm not going to hurt you. I'm here to help Elena." Caroline's eyes were wide with terror. Then something changed. The fear shifted, became something else. Recognition. "You're the man from next door," she breathed when he released her mouth. "Margaret's son." "Yes." "You're here for the safe. You know what's in it?" Caroline closed her eyes. When she opened them, tears were streaming down her face. "I've known for years," she whispered. "I've known, and I've done nothing. I told myself it wasn't my business. I told myself they were criminals anyway, illegals who deserved whatever happened to them." Her voice cracked. "But they weren't criminals. They were just girls. Scared, desperate girls who trusted the wrong man." "Mrs. Whitmore, he's going to kill her," Caroline said. "Elena, after tonight. He's taking her to the mountain property. No one ever comes back from there." "I know." "Then stop him, please. Stop him before I become complicit in another murder." Marcus studied her face, the genuine anguish, the years of guilt finally erupting. "I need you to do something for me," he said. "Anything." "Go back to the party. Act normal. Don't let him know anything is wrong." "And then?" "Tomorrow morning, when the FBI shows up, tell them everything. Every detail you've seen over the past 10 years. Caroline nodded slowly. "You're going to destroy him?" "Yes." "Good." She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "Good. I've been waiting for someone to destroy him for a very long time." She turned and walked out without looking back. Marcus waited until her footsteps faded. Then he finished photographing the contents of the safe, restored everything to its original position, and slipped back out into the night. He made it to his mother's property without incident. His heart was pounding. His hands were steady. He had everything. Tomorrow, Victor Whitmore's world would collapse. But as he approached the house, Ranger's barking shattered the silence. Not his normal alert bark, something urgent, panicked. Marcus broke into a run. He found Ranger at the back door, scratching frantically at the wood. Beyond the hedge, a light had come on in the Whitmore garden. And then Marcus heard it. Luna's yelp, sharp with pain. Elena's scream, cut brutally short. And Victor Whitmore's voice, carrying clearly through the night air. "I warned you about talking to strangers, Elena. I warned you what would happen." Marcus's blood turned to ice. He was already moving, but he knew with sickening certainty that he was too late. Whatever was happening behind that hedge was happening now, and all the evidence in the world wouldn't matter if Elena didn't survive the night. Marcus didn't think. 12 years of combat training took over. He vaulted the fence in one fluid motion, Ranger clearing it half a second behind him. The sound of Luna's cries guided him through the darkness, each yelp a knife twisting in his chest. He rounded the garden shed and stopped dead. Victor Whitmore stood in a pool of light from the back porch, his tuxedo jacket discarded, his sleeves rolled up. One hand gripped Luna by the scruff of her neck. The other held a garden spade, raised like a weapon. Elena was on her knees in the grass, blood streaming from a cut above her eye. She reached toward Luna, sobbing.
"Please, Mr. Whitmore, please, I wasn't talking to him. I was just collecting branches. I swear, I swear."
"You're lying." Whitmore's voice was calm, conversational. That made it worse. "I've been watching you for days, Elena. Did you think I was stupid? Did you think my cameras didn't see you whispering at the fence line?"
"I wasn't—"
"Don't." He tightened his grip on Luna. The dog squealed. "Don't insult my intelligence. I gave you everything. A home, food, protection. And this is how you repay me? By conspiring with strangers?"
"I wasn't conspiring.
You just what? Thought you could escape like Maria?" Whitmore laughed softly. "You know what happened to Maria, Elena. You know what happens to ungrateful girls who forget their place." Marcus stepped out of the shadows. Let the dog go. Whitmore's head snapped toward him. For a fraction of a second, surprise flickered across his face. Then it smoothed into contempt. Ah, the neighbor. Margaret Cole's boy, isn't it? The soldier playing at civilian life. I said, let the dog go. Or what? Whitmore's smile didn't reach his eyes. You'll call the police? The sheriff is inside my house right now, drinking my wine. You'll report me? To whom? I own this town. Marcus moved closer. Ranger flanked him, a low growl building in his chest. I'm not going to report you, Marcus said quietly. I'm going to stop you. Stop me? Whitmore seemed genuinely amused. You're trespassing on my property, threatening me in front of a witness. I could have you arrested in 5 minutes. You could try. Something shifted in Whitmore's expression. The amusement faded, replaced by calculation. He was reassessing the threat. Elena, Whitmore said without looking at her. Go inside. Now. Elena didn't move. Her eyes were fixed on Marcus, wide with terror and something else. Hope. Desperate, fragile hope. Elena, Whitmore's voice hardened. I won't ask again. She's not going anywhere, Marcus said. And neither are you. The standoff stretched. Luna whimpered in Whitmore's grip. Ranger's growl deepened. Then Whitmore made his move. He hurled Luna at Marcus, using the distraction to swing the spade at his head. Marcus caught the dog, twisting to avoid the blow. The spade whistled past his ear, close enough to feel the wind. Ranger launched himself at Whitmore. 80 pounds of trained military canine hit the man square in the chest. Whitmore went down hard, the spade flying from his hand. Ranger's jaws clamped onto his forearm, not biting through, but holding, controlling, exactly as he had been trained. Whitmore screamed, "Call him off! Call him off!" Marcus set Luna down gently. The dog limped immediately to Elena, who gathered her into her arms, crying. Ranger, hold! The dog maintained his grip, but didn't increase pressure. Whitmore lay pinned, his face contorted with pain and rage. You're making a mistake, he hissed. A terrible mistake. Do you know who I am? Do you know what I can do to you? Marcus crouched beside him, close enough that Whitmore could see his eyes. I know exactly who you are, Marcus said softly. I know about Maria Santos, Lita Fernandez, Rosa Aquino. I know about the ledger in your safe, the passports, the photographs. He paused. I know about the disposals. For the first time, fear flickered in Whitmore's eyes. Real fear. You broke into my house? I found evidence of human trafficking, forced labor, and what looks a lot like murder. The FBI will be very interested. The FBI? Whitmore laughed, but it was thin now, desperate. Do you have any idea how many federal judges owe me favors? How many prosecutors have taken my campaign donations? I'm sure Agent Diane Foster will be fascinated to hear about that, too. The name hit Whitmore like a physical blow. His face went white. Foster? You contacted Foster? She's expecting my call, tonight. Whitmore's composure cracked completely. Listen to me. Listen. We can make a deal. Whatever you want. Money, property. I can make you rich. I can make all of this go away. Like you made Maria go away? That wasn't... I didn't... Whitmore's voice rose. You don't understand. These women, they're nobody. Illegals. They came here knowing the risks. I gave them opportunities they never would have had otherwise. You enslaved them. I employed them. You beat them. You imprisoned them. You threatened their families. Marcus leaned closer. And when they tried to escape, you made them disappear. Where are they, Whitmore? Where did you put them? I want a lawyer. You'll get one, after you answer my question.
I have nothing to say to you.
Marcus looked at Elena. She sat in the grass, Luna in her lap, both of them trembling. Blood still seeped from the wound above her eye. Elena, Marcus said gently, I need you to call 911. Can you do that? She nodded, her hands shaking as she pulled out the phone Marcus had given her days ago. The phone Whitmore thought he had destroyed. Whitmore's eyes bulged. Where did she get that? I took her phone. I destroyed it. You destroyed one phone, Marcus said. I gave her another. You planned this. You planned all of this. I documented everything. The abuse, the threats, the evidence in your safe. You're done, Whitmore. It's over. Whitmore's face contorted with rage. It's not over. It's never over. Do you know how many people I've buried? How many problems I've solved? You think you're special? You think you're the first person to threaten me? No, Marcus said calmly, but I'm the last. Sirens wailed in the distance. Elena had made the call. Whitmore heard them too. His struggle renewed, desperate now. Ranger, hold firm! The dog adjusted his grip. Whitmore howled in pain. You can't do this to me! I have rights! So did they, Marcus said. Maria, Lita, Rosa, Elena. They had rights too. You just decided they didn't matter. The sirens grew louder, closer. Then the back door of the mansion burst open. Sheriff Tom Bradley emerged, gun drawn, flanked by 2 deputies. His face was flushed from wine and confusion. What the hell is going on here? Sheriff! Whitmore's voice cracked with relief. Thank God! This man broke into my property. He assaulted me. Arrest him! Bradley took in the scene. Marcus standing calmly, Ranger pinning Whitmore, Elena bleeding in the grass with Luna in her arms. Cole? The sheriff's eyes narrowed. What are you doing here? Stopping a crime in progress, Marcus said. Victor Whitmore was beating this woman and her dog when I intervened. That's a lie, Whitmore shouted. He attacked me. He broke into my house earlier tonight. Bradley's hand tightened on his weapon. Is that true? Did you break in? Marcus met his gaze steadily. I found evidence that Victor Whitmore has been running a human trafficking operation for at least 10 years. Multiple victims. The FBI has been contacted. Agent Diane Foster is on her way. Bradley flinched at Foster's name. The same fear that had crossed Whitmore's face now shadowed the sheriff's. FBI? Bradley's voice dropped. You brought in the feds? I brought in the people who can't be bought. The implication hung in the air. Bradley's face reddened. Now listen here. Sheriff, one of the deputies, younger, stepped forward. His name tag read Patterson. There's a woman here who's clearly been beaten. Protocol says we need to secure the scene and get her medical attention. I know protocol, Patterson. Then we should probably follow it, sir. The tension crackled. Bradley looked at Whitmore, then at Marcus, then at Elena. Mr. Whitmore, Bradley said slowly. I think we all need to calm down and sort this out at the station. The station? Whitmore's voice rose to a shriek. You work for me, Bradley. I paid for your election. I pay for everything in this worthless town. Bradley's jaw tightened. Something shifted in his expression. Maybe it was shame. Maybe it was the realization that the game was finally up. Deputy Patterson, Bradley said quietly. Call an ambulance for the woman, and read Mr. Whitmore his rights. What? Whitmore struggled against Ranger's hold. You can't be serious. Tom, we had a deal. We had a deal, Bradley agreed. And then you decided to commit assault in front of witnesses. He holstered his weapon. I'm a lot of things, Victor, but I'm not stupid enough to go down with your ship. Patterson moved forward with handcuffs. Ranger, release. The dog released Whitmore's arm and stepped back, positioning himself beside Marcus. His amber eyes remained fixed on Whitmore, watchful. As the cuffs clicked shut, Whitmore's composure shattered completely. You'll regret this, all of you. I have resources you can't imagine. Lawyers, connections. I'll destroy every single one of you. Save it for the judge, Patterson said, hauling him to his feet. Marcus turned to Elena. She was still on the ground, clutching Luna, her whole body shaking. Hey. He crouched beside her, keeping his voice soft. It's over. You're safe now. She looked at him with eyes that couldn't quite believe what they were seeing. He's really arrested? He's really going to jail? Yes. But his lawyers, his money, his connections won't help him. Not this time. I have everything, Elena. The ledger, the passports, the records. The FBI will build a case he can't buy his way out of. Tears streamed down her face. Maria, the others. Do you know what happened to them? Marcus hesitated. Not yet, but we'll find out. I promise. The ambulance arrived. Paramedics rushed to Elena, checking her injuries. One of them gently examined Luna, who had stopped whimpering but was clearly traumatized. As they loaded Elena into the ambulance, she reached for Marcus's hand. Come with me, she whispered. Please, I don't want to be alone. I'll be right behind you. I need to talk to the FBI first, but I won't leave you. She nodded, fresh tears spilling. Thank you. I don't know why you helped me. I don't know why you risked everything for someone you don't even know. But thank you. You can thank me later. Right now, just focus on getting better. The ambulance doors closed. Marcus watched it pull away, sirens wailing into the night. Agent Diane Foster arrived 45 minutes later. She was in her early 40s, compact and intense, with sharp brown eyes that missed nothing. She wore a dark blazer over jeans, her badge clipped to her belt. Cole? She extended her hand. I'm Foster. You want to tell me what the hell happened here tonight? Marcus told her. Everything. The abuse he had witnessed, the conversation with Father Thomas, Elena's testimony, the contents of Whitmore's safe. Foster listened without interruption, her expression growing grimmer with each detail. The safe, she said when he finished. You photographed everything? Marcus handed over the camera. It's all there. Names, dates, financial records, and there's a folder labeled Disposals, with dates and locations. I think that's where we'll find the other women. Foster's jaw tightened. Or what's left of them. You think they're dead? In cases like this, it's possible. Guys like Whitmore don't leave loose ends. She paused. But sometimes they don't finish the job. Sometimes the women are sold to other operations, moved to different locations. We won't know until we dig. Then start digging. Foster almost smiled. I like you, Cole. You've got a backbone. She tucked the camera into an evidence bag. This gives me enough for warrants. The safe, the house, his business properties. By morning, Whitmore's entire operation will be under federal microscope. What about the sheriff? He's been on Whitmore's payroll for years. Bradley? Foster's smile turned cold. He's already cooperating. Started singing the moment he realized which way the wind was blowing. Politicians are predictable that way. And Whitmore? Federal detention until his arraignment. No bail. Not for trafficking charges. She met Marcus's eyes. "You did good work tonight, Cole. Dangerous work. Stupid, technically, given that you broke about 6 laws. But good. I did what had to be done." "That's what they all say." She started toward her vehicle, then paused. "Your victim, Elena Reyes. She'll need to testify." She's scared. They always are. But without her testimony, the case is weaker. Documentary evidence is good. A living witness is better. "She'll testify," Marcus said. "She just needs to know she's safe first. Then make her feel safe. Because what happens next depends on whether she's willing to stand up in court and tell the world what Victor Whitmore did to her." Foster drove away. Marcus stood alone in the darkness, Ranger pressed against his leg. The Whitmore mansion loomed behind him, lights still blazing, guests still milling in confusion. Caroline Whitmore stood on the back porch, watching him. Their eyes met. She nodded once, then turned and went inside. She would testify too. Marcus was certain of it now. Years of complicity had finally broken something inside her, and the woman who emerged from that wreckage wanted absolution. Marcus walked back to his mother's property. The adrenaline was fading, leaving exhaustion in its wake. His hands trembled slightly as he unlocked the back door. But he didn't go inside. Instead, he sat on the porch steps. The same steps where his mother had probably sat 1,000 times, watching the same stars, breathing the same air. Ranger settled beside him with a heavy sigh. "We got him, boy," Marcus said quietly. "We actually got him." But even as he said the words, he knew the fight wasn't over. Whitmore had money, lawyers, a network of connections built over decades. The trial would be brutal. Elena would have to relive her trauma in front of strangers. The other victims, if they were alive, would have to be found and convinced to testify. And somewhere in the mountains, there might be bodies that needed to be recovered, families that needed to be notified, justice that needed to be served for women whose names Marcus was only beginning to learn. He thought about Maria Santos, the rosary Elena had found in the garden shed, the fear in Whitmore's eyes when Marcus mentioned the disposals folder. What had happened to her? What had happened to all of them? He pulled out his phone and dialed Father Thomas. "Marcus, it's nearly midnight. What happened?" "Whitmore is in custody. Federal charges. It's over." Silence. Then a sound that might have been a sob. "Thank God," Father Thomas whispered. "Thank God." "Father, I need your help with something." "Anything." "The families of the other women, Maria, Lita, Rosa. Someone needs to contact them. Someone needs to tell them what happened to their daughters." "I'll make the calls myself, first thing in the morning." "And Father, Elena is going to need support. The trial, the testimony, it's going to be hard. She'll need people in her corner." "She'll have them. I'll make sure of it." Marcus ended the call and stared up at the stars. Somewhere in the hospital, Elena was being treated for her injuries. Somewhere in federal detention, Whitmore was realizing that all his money and power couldn't save him. Somewhere in the Philippines, a 17-year-old girl named Anna had no idea that her sister had just been freed from captivity. And somewhere, maybe in a shallow grave in the mountains, or maybe in another prison she hadn't escaped, Maria Santos was waiting to be found. Marcus closed his eyes. Tomorrow, the real work would begin. The investigation, the evidence gathering, the slow, grinding process of justice that would take months or even years. But tonight, for the first time since he had returned to Willowbrook, Marcus Cole felt something that surprised him. Peace. Not because the battle was won. It wasn't. Not yet. But because he had finally found something worth fighting for. Ranger's head lifted suddenly, ears pricking. A moment later, Marcus heard it too. A car pulling into the driveway. He stood, instantly alert. Ranger moved to his side, hackles rising. The car door opened. A figure emerged, silhouetted against the headlights. "Mr. Cole?" A woman's voice, young, scared. "Who's askin'?" The figure stepped into the moonlight. Dark hair, Filipina features. Couldn't be older than 25. "My name is Rosa Aquino," she said. "Father Thomas said you could help me." Marcus stared at her. Rosa Aquino, the third name on Whitmore's list. The woman everyone thought had disappeared. "You're alive," he breathed. "Barely," her voice cracked. "There are others. In Baltimore, in Richmond. Women he sold to his associates when he was done with them." She swallowed hard. "I escaped 2 years ago. I've been hiding ever since. But Father Thomas said you arrested him. He said it was finally safe to come forward." Marcus's mind raced. If Rosa was alive, maybe the others were too. Maybe the disposals weren't murders. Maybe they were sales. "How many others?" he asked. "At least 6 that I know of, maybe more." Rosa's eyes filled with tears. "We've been too scared to talk, too scared to trust anyone. But if Whitmore is really in jail—" "He is. Federal custody. He's not getting out." "Then we'll testify, all of us. We'll tell the world what he did." Marcus felt the weight of her words settle over him. 6 more victims, 6 more testimonies, 6 more nails in Victor Whitmore's coffin. "Come inside," he said. "We have a lot to talk about." Rosa nodded. She took a step forward, then hesitated. "Mr. Cole, why did you do this? Why did you risk everything for people you've never met?" Marcus thought about the question. Thought about 12 years of combat. Thought about his mother dying alone. Thought about Elena's face when she realized she was finally free. "Because someone had to," he said simply. "And I was the one who was there." Rosa wiped her eyes. "Then God bless you, Mr. Cole, because you just gave hope to a lot of women who forgot what hope felt like." She walked toward the house. Ranger sniffed her hand, then wagged his tail in approval. And Marcus Cole, former Navy SEAL, stood on his mother's porch and watched the stars wheel overhead, knowing that the mission he thought was ending had only just begun. The night was quiet now. The sirens had faded, the chaos had settled. But somewhere in the darkness, justice was stirring. And it wouldn't rest until every victim was found, every monster was punished, and every voice that had been silenced finally had the chance to speak. That was worth fighting for. That was worth everything. Rosa Aquino talked until dawn. She told Marcus everything. How Whitmore had brought her from the Philippines with promises of a good job and a better life. How the debt had grown impossible. How the violence had started small and escalated. How she had watched Maria Santos disappear one night and known she would be next. "He didn't kill them," Rosa said, her hands wrapped around a cup of coffee that had long gone cold. "At least, not all of them. He sold them. When a woman became too much trouble or started asking questions, he would transfer her to one of his associates. Business partners, he called them. Men who ran similar operations in other cities." "How many associates?" "4 that I know of. 1 in Baltimore, 1 in Richmond, 2 in North Carolina." Rosa's voice shook. "I was supposed to go to Baltimore. The night before the transfer, I escaped through a window in the garden shed. I've been hiding ever since, working under a fake name, sleeping in shelters, too scared to trust anyone." Marcus leaned forward. "Rosa, The FBI is going to need names, locations, everything you remember about these associates.
I know.
She met his eyes.
That's why I'm here.
I'm done hiding. I'm done being afraid. If testifying means other women don't have to suffer what I suffered, then I'll stand in front of any judge and tell the truth. Even if Whitmore's lawyers try to destroy you on the stand, let them try. Something hard glittered in Rosa's eyes. I survived 3 years of Victor Whitmore. His lawyers don't scare me. Agent Foster arrived at 7 in the morning. She listened to Rosa's testimony with the focused intensity of a predator tracking prey. When Rosa finished, Foster made a single phone call. I need warrants for 4 additional locations: Baltimore, Richmond, Charlotte, and Raleigh. Coordinate with local field offices. This is now a multi-state trafficking investigation. She ended the call and turned to Marcus. You just blew this case wide open, she said. If Rosa's information is accurate, we're not just taking down Whitmore. We're dismantling an entire network. How long before you can move? Warrants should be ready by noon. Simultaneous raids across 4 states by tonight. Foster paused. There's something else. The disposals folder you photographed. My analysts have been working on it all night. And? The dates and locations correspond to land Whitmore owns in the Blue Ridge Mountains, a cabin property about 2 hours from here. Marcus's stomach tightened. You think there are bodies? I think there's something he didn't want found. I'm sending a forensics team this afternoon. The weight of those words settled over the room. Rosa bowed her head. Marcus thought about Maria Santos, the rosary left behind, the woman who had never come back. Find her, he said quietly. Whatever happened to her, find her. Her family deserves to know. We will, Foster said. I promise. Elena was released from the hospital that afternoon. Marcus met her in the lobby, Ranger at his side. She looked fragile in borrowed clothes, her face still bruised, her arm in a sling from where Whitmore had wrenched it during the attack. But she was walking. She was free. Luna bounded toward Elena the moment she stepped outside, tail wagging furiously. Elena dropped to her knees and buried her face in the dog's fur, sobbing. I thought I would never see you again, she whispered. I thought he was going to kill you. Marcus waited, giving her space. When she finally looked up, her eyes were red but clear. Where do I go now? She asked. I have nothing. No money, no papers, nowhere to live. You're coming with me, Marcus said. My mother's house has plenty of room. You can stay as long as you need. I can't ask you to. You're not asking. I'm offering. He helped her to her feet. Father Thomas is arranging for an immigration lawyer, someone who specializes in trafficking cases. You're going to be okay, Elena. I promise. She stared at him for a long moment. Then, slowly, she nodded. I still don't understand why you're doing this, she said softly. We're strangers. You owe me nothing. Marcus thought about his mother, the house he had inherited, the empty rooms that had been waiting for purpose. Maybe I needed a reason to stay, he said. Maybe you gave me one. That evening, the FBI raids hit simultaneously. Baltimore, Richmond, Charlotte, Raleigh. 4 operations coordinated to prevent any of Whitmore's associates from warning the others. Marcus watched the news coverage from his mother's living room, Elena beside him on the couch. Rosa had been taken into protective custody, but she had left her phone number with instructions to call if anything happened. The images on screen were chaotic. Agents in tactical gear, handcuffed men being led to waiting vehicles. And then, one by one, the victims emerged. 3 women in Baltimore, all Filipina. 2 in Richmond, one from Vietnam, one from Indonesia. 4 in Charlotte, 5 in Raleigh. 14 women freed in a single night. Elena's hand found Marcus's. She squeezed hard. "That could have been me," she whispered. "If you hadn't stopped him, that could have been me." "But it wasn't. You're here. You're safe. Because of you." Marcus shook his head. "Because of you. You were the one who found the courage to reach out. You were the one who gave me the safe code. You were the one who trusted me when every instinct told you not to." He met her eyes. "I just did what anyone should have done. You're the one who survived." Elena's tears fell silently. Luna pressed against her leg, sensing her distress. On the television, a reporter was interviewing one of the rescued women. She was young, maybe 20, with haunted eyes and trembling hands. But when she spoke, her voice was steady. "I thought no one would ever find us," she said. "I thought we would die in that house, forgotten. But someone came. Someone cared enough to look. And now, we're free." Elena turned off the television. She couldn't watch anymore. "I need to testify," she said quietly. "Don't I?" "Agent Foster thinks it would help the case, but no one is going to force you." "And if I don't? If I stay silent?" "Then Whitmore's lawyers will argue that the evidence is circumstantial. They'll claim you were a willing employee who changed your story for immigration benefits. They'll paint him as the victim." Elena's jaw tightened. "He beat me. He threatened my family. He kept me prisoner for 3 years." "I know." "And they'll try to make it sound like I'm the criminal?" "That's what defense attorneys do. They create doubt. They attack credibility. They make the victim the villain." Elena was quiet for a long moment. Luna had fallen asleep against her leg. The house was silent except for the ticking of an old clock on the mantel. "My sister," Elena said finally. "Anna. Is she safe?" "Father Thomas contacted her yesterday. She's fine. Scared, but fine." "Whitmore's threat was never real, Elena. He just wanted you to believe it was." "I spent 3 years believing it," her voice cracked. 3 years thinking that if I made one wrong move, she would pay for it. That's what kept me there. Not the locked doors, not the debt. The fear of what he would do to her. "He can't hurt her anymore. He can't hurt anyone." Elena closed her eyes. When she opened them, something had changed. The fear was still there, but it was no longer alone. There was anger now. Determination. "I'll testify," she said. "I'll stand in that courtroom and tell the world exactly what Victor Whitmore did to me. And if his lawyers want to call me a liar, they can try. But I have the scars to prove every word." The forensics team found the cabin the next morning. Marcus got the call from Agent Foster at 11:47 a.m. Her voice was flat, controlled, the way investigators sounded when they were trying not to feel. "We found remains," she said. 2 sets, buried behind the property. Marcus closed his eyes. "Maria? We won't know for certain until DNA testing is complete. But based on the timeline and Rosa's testimony, it's likely one of them is Maria Santos. And the other? We're still working on identification. Whitmore's records are incomplete. There may be victims we don't even know about." Jesus. I'm telling you this because Elena will hear about it soon. The media is already circling. I thought you should be able to prepare her. Thank you. Cole, one more thing. Whitmore is asking to see you. Marcus's grip tightened on the phone. Why? He won't say. His lawyers are furious. They're advising him not to speak to anyone. But he's insisting. Foster paused. You don't have to go. But if you do, it might give us insight into his mental state. Help us anticipate his defense strategy. When? This afternoon, if you're willing. Marcus thought about Maria Santos, the rosary in the garden shed, the unmarked graves in the mountains. "I'll be there," he said. Federal detention looked exactly the way Marcus expected. Cold, sterile, designed to strip away every illusion of power. Victor Whitmore sat on the other side of a reinforced glass partition, wearing an orange jumpsuit instead of his tailored suits. His silver hair was uncombed. His face was pale and drawn. But his eyes were the same. Cold, calculating, predatory. "Mr. Cole." Whitmore's voice was calm, almost pleasant. "Thank you for coming." "What do you want?" "Straight to the point. I appreciate that." Whitmore folded his hands on the table. "I want to make you an offer." "I'm listening." "I have resources that your federal friends can't touch. Offshore accounts, properties in countries without extradition treaties. I can transfer $5 million to any account you specify, anywhere in the world." He smiled thinly. "All you have to do is recant your testimony. Admit you broke into my home without authorization. Acknowledge that the evidence you gathered was obtained illegally." Marcus stared at him. "You murdered 2 women, probably more, and you think $5 million is going to make that go away?" "I didn't murder anyone," Whitmore said smoothly. "I may have made arrangements that had unfortunate consequences, but my hands are clean. They've always been clean. The FBI found bodies on your property. Bodies that could have been placed there by anyone. My lawyers are already preparing motions to suppress the evidence. Chain of custody issues, illegal search concerns." Whitmore leaned forward. "This case isn't as solid as you think, Mr. Cole. The prosecution has a good story, but stories can be rewritten." "Not this one." "Everyone has a price. What's yours?" Marcus thought about Elena, curled on his mother's couch with Luna in her arms. He thought about Rosa, finally free after 2 years of hiding. He thought about Maria Santos, buried in an unmarked grave while her mother spent years wondering what happened to her daughter. "You want to know my price?" Marcus said quietly. "My price is watching you spend the rest of your life in a cell. My price is hearing the verdict when the jury finds you guilty. My price is seeing the look on your face when you realize that all your money and all your power can't buy your way out of what you've done." Whitmore's smile flickered, just for a moment. "You're making a mistake," he said. "A serious mistake. I have friends you can't imagine. Resources you can't comprehend. This trial will drag on for years, and when it's over, I'll walk free while I what?" Marcus leaned closer to the glass. "I've spent 12 years fighting enemies who wanted to kill me. I've been shot at, blown up, hunted through territory where every shadow could mean death. You think you scare me? You're a bully with a checkbook, and bullies only have power when their victims stay silent. Elena won't testify. She's too scared. She already agreed to testify. So did Rosa. So did Caroline." For the first time, genuine shock crossed Whitmore's face. "Caroline? My wife?" "Your wife has been cooperating with the FBI for 3 days. She's telling them everything, Whitmore. Every victim, every payment, every conversation she overheard while pretending not to notice." Marcus smiled coldly. "Turns out the woman you ignored for 30 years was paying attention after all." Whitmore's composure cracked. His hands trembled against the table. "She wouldn't dare. I made her. Without me, she's nothing." "Wrong. Without you, she's free. And freedom is worth more than all the money you could ever offer." Marcus stood. "We're done here." "Wait!" Whitmore's voice was desperate now. 10 million. 20. Name your price." "There is no price. That's what you never understood. Some things can't be bought. Some people can't be owned. And some debts can only be paid in blood. Marcus turned toward the door. Goodbye, Mr. Whitmore. I'll see you at the trial. He walked out without looking back. The sound of Whitmore's voice followed him down the corridor, rising in pitch and volume. This isn't over. Do you hear me? This isn't over. But it was. And somewhere deep inside, Marcus suspected Victor Whitmore knew it too. The weeks that followed were a blur of preparation. Elena worked with attorney Sarah Chen, the immigration lawyer Father Thomas had recommended, to secure her T-visa status. Rosa and the other victims were interviewed extensively by federal prosecutors. Caroline Whitmore provided testimony that filled in gaps the investigators hadn't known existed. And slowly, piece by piece, the full scope of Victor Whitmore's crimes emerged. 14 women trafficked over 12 years. 2 confirmed murders. Financial fraud. Tax evasion. Witness intimidation. Conspiracy charges that linked him to 4 other men running similar operations across the East Coast. The media called it the largest domestic trafficking case in Virginia history. Marcus tried to stay out of the spotlight. He was a witness, not a hero. But the reporters wouldn't leave him alone. They camped outside his mother's house. They called his phone at all hours. They wanted interviews, exclusives, the story behind the story. He refused them all. Why? Elena asked one evening. They were sitting on the back porch, watching the sunset. Luna dozed at her feet. Ranger lay beside Marcus, his gray muzzle resting on his paws. You could be famous. You could write a book. Make millions. I didn't do this for fame, Marcus said. I did it because it was right. But people should know. They should know what you risked. They know what matters. They know that 14 women are free. They know that a monster is going to prison. The rest is just noise. Elena was quiet for a moment. Then she reached over and took his hand. I'm starting to think you're the most unusual man I've ever met, she said softly. Is that good or bad? I haven't decided yet. But she was smiling when she said it. The first real smile he had seen on her face since they met. The DNA results came back on a Tuesday. Maria Santos, confirmed. Her mother flew in from Manila for the memorial service. She was a small woman, barely 5 feet tall, with gray hair and eyes that had cried themselves empty years ago. Father Thomas conducted the service. It was small and private, held in the chapel of St. Michael's. Elena attended, clutching a tissue, tears streaming down her face. Rosa was there too, along with several of the other rescued women. Marcus stood in the back, Ranger at his side. He didn't know Maria, had never met her, but her death weighed on him nonetheless. If he had been here sooner, if he had seen the abuse earlier, if he had acted faster, the guilt was irrational, he knew that, but it was there all the same. After the service, Maria's mother approached him. You are the one, she said in heavily accented English, the one who found my daughter. I'm sorry I couldn't save her. You saved the others. Her eyes glistened. You gave my daughter justice. That is more than I ever hoped for. She took his hand in both of hers, her grip surprisingly strong. God bless you, Mr. Cole. God bless you for not looking away. She walked away, small and dignified, carrying a grief that would never fully heal. Marcus watched her go and felt something shift inside him. The weight he had carried since his last deployment, the guilt over decisions that replayed endlessly in his mind, loosened just slightly. He couldn't save everyone, he knew that now. But he could save some. And sometimes, some was enough. The trial date was set for September, 6 months away. 6 months of preparation. 6 months of waiting. But as Marcus walked back to his mother's house that afternoon, Elena and Luna beside him, Ranger padding along at his heels. He found he didn't mind the wait. Because for the first time in as long as he could remember, Marcus Cole wasn't counting down to an ending. He was looking forward to a beginning. The house that had once belonged to his mother no longer felt empty. Elena's laughter filled the rooms. Luna's paws clicked across the hardwood floors. Ranger had claimed a spot by the fireplace and seemed content to never leave it. This wasn't the life Marcus had imagined when he joined the Navy at 18. It wasn't the life he had expected when he arrived in Willowbrook to settle his mother's estate. But it was a good life, a purposeful life, and it was just getting started. That night, after Elena had gone to bed and the house had fallen silent, Marcus sat on the back porch and looked up at the stars. "I hope you can see this, Mom," he said quietly. "I hope you know what this house is becoming." The wind rustled through the trees. Somewhere in the distance, an owl called. And Marcus Cole, former Navy SEAL, smiled in the darkness and let himself believe that everything was going to be okay. But 200 miles away, in a federal detention facility, Victor Whitmore was meeting with a visitor. Not his lawyer, not his wife. Someone else entirely. "The trial is in 6 months," Whitmore said quietly. "I need the witness eliminated before then." The visitor smiled. "Which one?" "All of them." The visitor nodded slowly. "That's going to be expensive." "Money isn't a problem." Whitmore's eyes glittered with something dark and dangerous. "But I want the SEAL first. I want him to watch everyone he cares about disappear before I finish him." "Consider it done." The visitor stood, straightened his jacket, and walked out into the night. And in Willowbrook, completely unaware, Marcus Cole continued to watch the stars, believing the worst was behind him. He had no idea how wrong he was. The first sign of danger came 3 weeks later. Marcus noticed it immediately. A black sedan parked at the end of the street that hadn't been there before. A man in a dark jacket walking past the house twice in 1 hour. Small things, insignificant to most people. Not to a Navy SEAL. He called Agent Foster that afternoon. "Someone's watching my house." "You sure?" "I've been doing surveillance for 12 years. I know when I'm being surveilled." Foster was quiet for a moment. "Whitmore's been making calls from detention. We've been monitoring, but he's careful. Uses coded language." "What kind of calls?" "The kind that worry us." She paused. "I'm sending a protection detail. Should be there by tonight." "Don't bother. If someone's coming for me, I'd rather handle it myself." "Marcus, just keep Elena and the other witnesses safe. I can take care of myself." He hung up and walked to the window. The black sedan was still there. The driver hadn't moved. Ranger stood beside him, hackles raised, a low growl rumbling in his chest. "I see him, boy," Marcus murmured. "I see him." That night, Marcus sent Elena to Father Thomas's church. She protested, but he was firm. "I need you safe," he said. "Luna too. Just for a few days, until we figure out what's happening." "You think Whitmore sent someone?" "I think Whitmore doesn't know how to lose. And men who don't know how to lose do desperate things." Elena's eyes searched his face. "What about you?" "I'll be fine. I've dealt with worse." "Promise me you'll be careful." Marcus almost smiled. It had been a long time since anyone had asked him to be careful. "I promise." He watched her drive away with Father Thomas, Luna's face pressed against the rear window. Then he turned back to the house. Time to prepare. The attack came at 2:47 a.m. Marcus was ready. He heard the back door being forced open. Soft footsteps in the kitchen. 2 sets. Professional. Quiet. Ranger was already on his feet, positioned beside Marcus in the darkened living room. His body vibrated with controlled tension. Marcus held up a hand. Wait. The footsteps grew closer. A shadow appeared in the doorway. Now. Marcus moved with lethal precision. 12 years of combat training compressed into 3 seconds of violence. The first intruder went down before he could raise his weapon. The second spun toward the noise and found Ranger's jaws locked around his gun arm. The man screamed. The weapon clattered to the floor. Marcus was on him instantly, pinning him face down, knee in his back. "Who sent you?" The man said nothing. Marcus applied pressure to his shoulder joint. The man screamed again. "I can do this all night. Who sent you?"
"Whitmore!"
The word came out in a gasp.
"Whitmore sent us."
"How many more?" "Just us. We were supposed to—" He choked. "We were supposed to make it look like a robbery." "And Elena? Was she a target too?" Silence. Marcus twisted harder. "Yes, the women too. All the witnesses. Whitmore wants them all dead before the trial." Marcus's blood ran cold. He pulled out his phone and dialed Foster with one hand, while maintaining pressure with the other. "I have 2 of Whitmore's men at my house. Attempted assassination. They're talking." "Are you hurt?" "No, but they confirmed there are more teams. Elena, Rosa, the other witnesses. They're all targets." Foster's voice turned to steel. "I'm mobilizing protective details now. Every witness goes into federal protection tonight." "Good. And Foster, make sure Whitmore knows his plan failed. I want him to understand that his reach isn't as long as he thinks." "With pleasure." 2 hours later, the FBI had rounded up 3 more assassination teams. One in Baltimore, heading for Rosa's safe house. One in Richmond. One that had been watching Caroline Whitmore's sister's home, where Caroline had been staying since turning state's evidence. All neutralized. All talking. By morning, the evidence against Victor Whitmore had grown exponentially. Conspiracy to commit murder. Obstruction of justice. Witness tampering. The charges multiplied like cancer cells. And in his federal detention cell, Victor Whitmore learned that his desperate gamble had failed. The news broke across every major network. Trafficking kingpin Victor Whitmore, accused of ordering hits on witnesses from behind bars. Federal prosecutors add murder conspiracy charges to Whitmore indictment. Former Navy SEAL thwarts assassination attempt, captures would-be killers. Marcus ignored the cameras outside his house. Ignored the requests for interviews. Ignored everything except making sure Elena was safe. She returned from Father Thomas's church the next afternoon, Luna in her arms. When she saw Marcus on the porch, she ran to him and threw her arms around his neck. "I thought you were dead," she sobbed. "I heard there was an attack, and I thought—" "I'm fine." He held her carefully, aware of how fragile she still was, how fragile they both were. "It's over now. Whitmore's finished." "How can you be sure?" "Because he played his last card and lost. The attempted hits just added more charges, more evidence, more nails in his coffin." Marcus pulled back to look at her. "He can't hurt you anymore, Elena. He can't hurt anyone." She searched his face, looking for doubt, finding none. "I was so scared," she whispered. "Not just for me, for you. I couldn't bear it if something happened to you because of me." "Nothing happened to me because of you. Everything happened because a man thought he was above the law, and he was wrong. Luna squirmed between them, demanding attention. Elena laughed through her tears and set the dog down. "She missed you," Elena said. "I missed her too." Marcus knelt and scratched Luna behind the ears. Ranger approached and sniffed the smaller dog, then wagged his tail in approval. "Looks like everyone's getting along." "We're a pack now," Elena said softly. "Isn't that what you military people call it?" "Something like that." The trial began on September 15th. Marcus had never seen a courtroom so packed. Every seat filled. Media from across the country. Cameras everywhere. Victor Whitmore sat at the defense table in a tailored suit, looking nothing like the desperate man who had ordered assassinations from his cell. His lawyers had groomed him carefully. The mask was back in place. But Marcus knew what lay beneath it. The prosecution's case was devastating. 14 victims testified over 4 days. Elena went first, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. She described 3 years of captivity, the beatings, the threats, the debt that never decreased no matter how hard she worked. When the defense attorney tried to paint her as a willing participant who had changed her story for immigration benefits, Elena looked him in the eye and said, "Show me the contract I signed. Show me the agreement I made. Show me anything with my signature that says I agreed to be beaten, starved, and imprisoned." The attorney had no response. Rosa testified next, detailing her escape and 2 years of hiding. Then Caroline Whitmore took the stand. The courtroom gasped when she was called. Whitmore's face went pale. Caroline walked to the witness box with the bearing of a woman who had finally shed a weight she had carried for decades. She looked at her husband once, briefly, then turned to the jury. "I have been complicit in my husband's crimes for 30 years, she said. "I saw, I knew, and I did nothing." Her voice cracked. "I told myself it wasn't my business. I told myself those women were criminals. I told myself whatever I needed to believe to sleep at night." She paused. "But the truth is, I was a coward, and my cowardice allowed monsters to flourish." "Objection!" Whitmore's lead attorney was on his feet. "The witness is not qualified to make character assessments." "Overruled." The judge's voice was ice. "The witness may continue." Caroline continued for 3 hours. She named names, dates, locations, financial transactions. She explained how Whitmore had built his trafficking network over decades, using legitimate businesses as fronts. By the time she finished, the defense's case was in ruins. Marcus testified on day 7. He described what he had witnessed from his mother's property, the abuse, the threats, the night he rescued Elena and Luna, the contents of Whitmore's safe. The defense tried to discredit him. "You broke into Mr. Whitmore's home illegally, didn't you, Mr. Cole?" "I entered through a service entrance, using a code provided by a victim seeking rescue. Without a warrant. I was a civilian responding to a crime in progress. I documented evidence of human trafficking and turned it over to federal authorities. Evidence that would be inadmissible if obtained illegally. The FBI obtained their own warrants based on victim testimony. My photographs were corroborating evidence, not primary." The attorney shifted tactics. "You're a trained killer, aren't you, Mr. Cole? 12 years as a Navy SEAL?" "I'm a trained professional who spent 12 years protecting American interests. Protecting them by killing people." Marcus met the attorney's eyes. "When necessary." "And you assaulted my client on the night in question. Used your military training to physically overpower him." "I restrained him while he was in the process of beating a woman and her dog. My training kept him alive. If I had wanted to kill him, he would be dead." The courtroom went silent. The attorney had no further questions. Closing arguments came on day 12. The prosecutor stood before the jury with a stack of photographs. 14 women, 14 faces, 14 lives that Victor Whitmore had tried to own. "These are not statistics," she said. "These are human beings, daughters, sisters, mothers, women who came to this country seeking a better life and found instead a prison disguised as opportunity." She set down the photographs. "Victor Whitmore will tell you he is a philanthropist, a job creator, a pillar of the community. And he was all of those things. On the surface." Her voice hardened. But beneath that surface was a monster who trafficked women for profit, enslaved them through fabricated debt, threatened their families, and murdered those who tried to escape. She pointed at Whitmore. He thought his money made him untouchable. He thought his connections made him invincible. He thought his power meant the rules didn't apply to him. She turned back to the jury. Show him he was wrong. The defense's closing was predictable. Reasonable doubt, unreliable witnesses, circumstantial evidence. The jury didn't buy it. They deliberated for 4 hours. Guilty on all counts. Human trafficking, forced labor, document servitude, conspiracy to commit murder, tax evasion, witness tampering. 47 charges. 47 guilty verdicts. Victor Whitmore sat motionless as the verdicts were read. His mask never cracked. But Marcus saw his hands trembling beneath the table. The sentencing came 3 weeks later. "Victor Whitmore," the judge said, "you have been found guilty of some of the most heinous crimes I have encountered in 30 years on the bench. You exploited vulnerable women for profit. You imprisoned them through fraud and violence. And when they tried to escape, you had them killed." The judge paused. "You believed your wealth placed you above the law. You believed your connections made you immune to consequence. You believed wrong." He looked directly at Whitmore. "I sentence you to 4 consecutive life terms without the possibility of parole. You will die in federal prison. And I hope, in whatever years remain to you, you find time to contemplate the lives you destroyed." Whitmore was led away in handcuffs. He didn't look at anyone as he passed. Didn't speak. Didn't protest. The monster was finally caged. Outside the courthouse, Elena stood with Marcus, Luna in her arms. Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions. She ignored them all. "It's really over," she said quietly. "I can't believe it's really over." "It's over," Marcus confirmed. "He's never getting out." "What happens now?" Marcus thought about the question. Thought about the empty house that wasn't empty anymore. Thought about the life he had found when he stopped looking for one. "Now we live," he said. "Now we build something better." 6 months later, the Whitmore estate had been seized by federal authorities and sold at auction. Marcus bought it with the proceeds from his mother's life insurance and his Navy pension. He demolished the mansion, every brick, every stone, every reminder of what had happened within those walls. In its place, he built something new. Guardian's Refuge opened its doors on a warm spring morning. A shelter for trafficking survivors. A place where women who had escaped captivity could find safety, support, and a path forward. Elena was there for the ribbon cutting. She had graduated from the vocational program Father Thomas had helped her enroll in. She was training to become a victim advocate, helping other women navigate the legal and emotional aftermath of trafficking. Rosa worked at the shelter too, counseling new arrivals who were too scared to trust anyone. Caroline Whitmore, released after 18 months for her cooperation, donated her entire divorce settlement to the foundation. It wasn't absolution. Nothing could absolve her. But it was something. Father Thomas blessed the building with holy water and a prayer. "May this place be a sanctuary for the wounded," he said. May it offer hope to the hopeless and healing to the broken. And may everyone who enters here know that they are not forgotten. Marcus stood at the back of the crowd, Ranger at his side. He didn't need to be in front, didn't need recognition nor praise. He just needed to know that something good had grown from something terrible. Elena found him after the ceremony. "You're hiding," she said. "I'm observing." "Same thing." She smiled, and the change in her was remarkable. The haunted look was gone. The constant tension had faded. She stood straighter now, spoke louder, took up space in the world like she finally believed she deserved to. "Thank you," she said. "You've thanked me 100 times. And I'll thank you 100 more." She took his hand. "You gave me my life back, Marcus. You gave all of us our lives back. How do I ever repay that?" Marcus thought about the question, thought about the house that had become a home, the shelter that had become a mission, the woman who had become something more than he had expected. "You don't repay it," he said. "You pass it on. You help the next person who needs it, and the person after that. That's how this works. That's how we make things better." Elena nodded slowly. Then she rose on her toes and kissed his cheek. "You're a good man, Marcus Cole." "I'm trying to be." "You're succeeding." That evening, Marcus sat on the porch of what used to be his mother's house. Elena was inside, cooking dinner. Luna and Ranger lay tangled together on the floor, long past the point of distinguishing between her dog and his. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of gold and rose. His phone buzzed. A text from Agent Foster. Final count: 47 women rescued from Whitmore's network. 4 additional perpetrators convicted. You started something big, Cole. Marcus read the message twice. Then he set the phone down and watched the light fade. 47 women. 47 lives saved. It wasn't enough. It would never be enough. Somewhere out there, more women were trapped in the same nightmare Elena had escaped. More monsters were hiding behind wealth and power and respectability. But 47 was a start. Elena appeared in the doorway. "Dinner's ready." "Be right there." She paused. "What are you thinking about?" Marcus considered the question, thought about the path that had brought him here, the deployment that had ended badly, the mother who had died alone, the woman who had screamed for help behind a hedge. "I'm thinking about choices," he said finally, "about how one moment, one decision, can change everything." "Do you regret it? Getting involved?" "No." The word came without hesitation. "I spent 12 years fighting wars that never seemed to end. I came home empty, Elena. Broken. Looking for a reason to keep going." He met her eyes. "I found one. I found several." She smiled, and it was like watching the sunrise. "Come eat before it gets cold," she said. He stood. Ranger lifted his head, then settled back down with a contented sigh. At the door, Marcus paused and looked back at the property one more time. The shelter in the distance, the gardens that volunteers were planting, the paths being built for walking and healing and hope. This was his legacy now, not the battles he had fought or the enemies he had killed. This. Life from destruction, light from darkness, hope from despair. He walked inside and closed the door behind him. The sun finished setting. The stars emerged. The night settled over Willowbrook with the peace of a town that had finally faced its demons. And in a federal prison, 200 miles away, Victor Whitmore sat alone in his cell, staring at the wall, understanding at last that there were some things money could never buy. Freedom, redemption, a second chance. Those belonged to the ones he had tried to destroy. Those belonged to the survivors. Elena Reyes slept soundly that night for the first time in years. Luna curled at her feet, dreams untroubled by fear. Rosa Aquino called her mother in the Philippines and heard her cry with joy. Father Thomas knelt in his empty church and thanked God for sending a soldier when the world needed a guardian. And Marcus Cole, former Navy SEAL, sat in the darkness of his mother's house and finally understood why he had survived when so many others hadn't. Not to fight, to protect. Not to destroy, to build. Not to look away, to see. Some people believe that evil wins because good people do nothing. They believe that monsters flourish because witnesses stay silent. They believe that power corrupts and wealth protects, and justice is only for those who can afford it. But sometimes a man with nothing but courage stands up and says no. Sometimes a dog with nothing but loyalty steps between violence and innocence. Sometimes a woman with nothing but hope finds the strength to speak. And when that happens, everything changes. Not because heroes are special, but because they choose to be. This is the truth that Victor Whitmore never understood, the truth that brought his empire crashing down. Evil is never as strong as it thinks it is, and love, when it refuses to look away, is stronger than any cage ever built. Elena found her voice. Rosa found her freedom. Marcus found his purpose. And somewhere tonight, in shelters and safe houses across the country, 47 women are sleeping without fear for the first time in years. That is the power of one person who refuses to look away. That is the power of courage spoken aloud. That is the light that darkness cannot overcome. If you're watching this today, carrying your own silence, your own fear, your own pain, hear this. You are not alone. You are not forgotten. And somewhere, someone is ready to help you find your voice. All you have to do is speak. Share this story so its message can reach someone who needs it. Leave a comment to honor the survivors who found the courage to speak. Subscribe for more stories of hope and redemption. And may you always have the strength to see, the courage to act, and the faith to believe that light will always find a way in. This story has ended, but the fight continues. And as long as there are people willing to stand up, to speak out, to refuse to look away, evil will never have the final word. Never. The end.